POC people, but namely white people.
You must hate yourself. You must actually hate yourself.
And that's why you need to really know God for yourself, and you need to know what is really for you. There are thousands of people applying to the same course, but it was enough for me to completely question my entire purpose.
Little child, he's on the phone.
You turn around, babe.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Natasha's Narrative. If you've never been on this channel before, welcome. Just wanted to thank everyone who subscribed so far. I'm now officially on 100 subs, so thank you so much. Start asking your nosy questions for the get to know me that I promised I would do. I'm going to be filming that in about a week or so. So you guys have about a weekish to get in any questions that you'd like to ask. It can be literally anything, education related, like med school, A levels, etc. Personal questions, advice questions, whatever you want to ask, really, ask away. And I will get to answering those in one of my upcoming videos. So today's probably not going to be that long of a video, and I'm going to start doing a little kind of series on things that I feel like really hold us back in life. So I'm going to be talking about pride, I'm going to be talking about unforgiveness, I'm going to be talking about insecurities and fear. Yes, because I feel like those are things that have personally affected me a lot throughout my life, and I feel like they have really held me back. So for this video, I'm going to kick it off by talking about fear and insecurities. I'm going to broadly outline fear and insecurities kind of as a whole, and then start to talk about things like relationships and jobs and school in a bit more detail later on. Today, we're going to kick it off by talking about fears and insecurities. So everyone has fears and insecurities to some degree. It varies with each person. Some are bigger than others, and you know, it's normal to be fearful of certain things or to have certain worries here and there. But where fears and insecurities become really dangerous is when they start to change the way that you feel about yourself, and you kind of have, like, I would say, like a mental dysmorphia about who you are. You don't think that you're good enough to have certain friends or be in relationships. You don't think that you're smart enough to get into certain schools or do certain degrees. You don't think that you have the qualifications or just the ability to perform and excel in certain jobs or sports or whatever it really is. And that can be really, really dangerous because it can prevent us from being able to seek out opportunities and to be able to tap into the opportunities that are at hand. So today I'm going to be talking let me just, that's still recording. Cool. So as I said before, you know, it's normal to have a little fear or a little worry about something. If you're going to like a really important exam, or before I would sit like my UCAT exam, or before my med school interviews, I would be a little bit worried because I would be scared that maybe, you know, it's not going to go well. And that's normal. When you care about something or somebody, you're always going to kind of have a little bit of worry attached to that. So like I said, but the dangerous thing is when it just completely consumes you. And as Christians, we're told to cast all our anxiety on God because he cares for us. So that means that when you're feeling this overwhelming kind of sense of worry and fear and panic, that we should bring it to God in prayer and he will relieve that for us. That doesn't mean that it will dissipate instantly. It doesn't also mean that whatever you're worried about will be necessarily fixed the way that you want it to. So for example, if I'm worried about, you know, going to an interview and I'm praying to God and I'm casting my anxieties on him, it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm going to necessarily pass that interview, because it might not be what is needed for me or the place that I'm meant to be. And the reason why it's so important to really try and minimize that kind of ferocious amount of fear and worrying is because of what I said, that it just completely consumes your thoughts. And for us as well, I say for us, for me as a Christian, that over kind of consumption of thought becomes a sense of kind of idolization, and you start to put these things that shouldn't be above God, they do become above God because that's all you can think about, and you don't end up setting up your priorities in order. And for people who are not, Christian or are not believers of any sort of faith, it's the same thing for you. If you're overly worried about something, you're less likely to be able to concentrate on other things that do still really matter within your life, because you're just still thinking about this situation that's happened or something that's going to happen in the future. Or especially, worst thing is fears and worries about things that are out of your control. Once you've sat an exam paper, please guys, because I know that a lot of people still do this. I have a habit of doing it as well, and I'm really trying to get myself out of it. If something's not in your control, you need to stop worrying about it, because there's really nothing you can do. The amount of stress that I had in third year, to the point where I was like an insomniac, I was not sleeping. My friends even tried to get me stuff to help me with my sleep. Like, it was that bad. It was just insane, because I put all this stress on myself over situations that I was no longer in control over. And I know it sounds really difficult and hard, but you have to kind of come to realize that, like, it is in a way a tiny bit ridiculous for me to be stressed out about things that I can no longer change. If you can change something, then obviously, like I said, you don't want to be overwhelmingly worried, but it's more normal to have a kind of sense of, oh, I need to be able to sort this out, or whatever it is. But if you can't do anything about it, don't do that. Like, I don't think you understand. If you have high levels of stress, you're more likely to get a stroke and have a heart attack. I'm telling you now, we do not, yeah. Don't come and kill yourself because of an examination that's gone badly, you think, and you don't even know, or because of like a test paper that you've handed in. Like, I remember, this was when I was in my second year at Newcastle. I had a what is it? It was like, I guess it was what do they call them? A timed essay. I had a timed essay, right? And this essay was on a section that we had studied called like the ECM, which is the extracellular matrix. And I did all this like prep on the extracellular matrix, and I missed out a certain section because I wanted to add like extra reading in there. So the type of like protein that they were talking about, one of the important proteins that they talked about, I studied that, but I didn't study certain diseases because I wanted to add my own diseases so that I got like extra reading marks, and it would boost my mark overall. I get there, I see that protein, and I see that protein, and yeah, I did read it, but not that well, again, because I wanted to get extra marks and bring in something new. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I have no content. I literally, for the first 5 minutes of that exam, but literally everyone was in the same boat, I did not hear one pencil. It was just silence. Everyone was like, we are all screwed. This exam is finished for us. So I remember when I came out of the exam, calling my mum, because I used to tell my mum whenever I had a timed essay, and I'd call her after it or text her if she didn't pick up because she might have been at work or something. And she was just like, how did it go? And I was like, yeah, I don't think it went that well. Basically prepping her, because I thought I was going to get between a 0 and a 40. I ended up getting, I think it was like a 62 or a 64 in that exam. So I was there worrying, stressing, like, for like at least the rest of that day, probably the day after, because of an exam, a timed essay that I thought I'd done badly in, and I ended up doing really well. And that's why when things are out of your hands, like, I'm not saying it's always a positive result, it can be a negative result, but if there's nothing that you can do about it, then you need to leave it alone. So moving on, how can we actually, actively reduce our fears and insecurities and the power that it kind of holds over us as people? If you're Christian, then obviously the first thing I would suggest to do is to look into scripture. You can even look online and be like, Bible verses about fears, Bible verses about anxieties, praying as well, of course. I would also say just in general, you have to kind of like, you have to remove the power that these fears and insecurities have over you. And I feel like the best way that I've managed to do that is by kind of like following a trail of what is the worst thing that can actually happen in this situation. So for example, if I don't do well in this interview, what will happen to me next? It can mean that I have to reapply for med school in the next year. It can mean that I have to call up places for clearing. It can mean that I'm just not going to that school, and I may still have other options. So you have to kind of look at the worst case scenario, and when you do this, you'll realize that a majority of these worst case scenarios are not going to actually kill you. They're not. And a lot of the time, the fear of the situation that we have in our mind is always worse than the actual outcome of the situation. So you have to minimize that fear. And I think also trying to trace back, like, why do you have that fear? I mean, for certain things, like when it came to med school situations and me being scared of interviews, it made sense why I was scared, because I'd failed before, because I had put too much waiting on being a doctor. Like I mentioned in other videos, I feel like it was literally one of the top things in my life, if not the top. And I feel bad saying it now, but I think I really did care about med school more about pretty much anything else in this world. And I think when you put such a heavy weighting on yourself, when you've only got one interview, of course you're going to freak out. Of course you're not going to be able to concentrate, because when that breaks, when you don't accomplish that, it's like your whole world is collapsing and everything is just ruined. It's like the foundation, the cornerstone of your life is ruined, which obviously I have now reevaluated things in my life, and that is no longer the case. But at that time, that's really how I felt. And then, you know, with regards to like relationships, I'm gonna go into that in more kind of detail in another video. But I feel like with relationships, it's always a lot harder. It means opening a lot of boxes that we don't want to open. It means looking into a lot of things that we don't want to look into. It means delving into deeper hurts and trauma that we don't want to look into, essentially, because who wants to keep on revisiting the same thing, especially if you feel like it's going to be hard for you to reconcile from a situation or heal from a situation, but it's needed to be done. It really is really important for you to go into it. It's really important for you to do that, and it's not because anyone is perfect within a relationship, or when you go into a relationship you still won't be having any sorts of issues on your side. That's not the case. The reason why, for me, I know like there are certain things that have definitely made me at the time like completely scared of any sort of relationship, romantic relationship, even certain friendships. I think I have a fear of I had a fear of connecting with people, but with relationships, definitely, for sure. I had a huge fear of like getting into relationships, and I knew where the fears came from, but I didn't want to really confront the issues. I would have preferred to bury them, like, and that's an issue that I've had personally, is not bringing situations up or not healing from situations. The worst thing, I think, is substitution. So when you're hurt, like emotional eating, just examples like emotional eating and like partying too much, or drinking too much, or jumping from person to person. Like all of these things are just, you know, ways of filling a hole, but you're filling this hole with like garbage. Like just because something, it's kind of like if, for example, kind of like if you're making a cake and instead of pouring the same amount of sugar that you should pour, you poured in salt instead. It's like, yeah, like technically all the measurements seem to measure up, but you're actually just causing yourself more harm. But like I said, I will get into that sort of video another time in more detail. That's what I really wanted to say today, guys, about fears and insecurities. And I think, you know, if you have people that you trust, talking to, you know, a family member or a friend about a situation and seeing if they can hopefully hopefully give you good advice and, you know, being supportive, because these insecurities, they can ruin they can really ruin everything, and they can really prevent you from having certain situations. There's so many people who have regrets about, oh, like, I wish I didn't feel that I was not smart enough because I would have applied to do this, or I wish I didn't feel like I wasn't good enough because I would have probably ended up dating one of these people and it would have probably been great. There are so many people who have been denied of certain opportunities because they were scared. That's all I have to say today about this kind of fears and insecurity video. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Sharing these videos would be absolutely amazing if you like them. And this is Natasha's narrative. You'll see me soon for another video. I still need to edit the turkey vlog. This is very, very embarrassing. I came home over a month ago. I have done nothing. But yeah, sorry for the lack of content online as well. I've been really, really busy with the whole med school thing. But yeah, bye. See you later.